let's, so we were logging into Blackboard last we looked, and let's see if I've typed in my password correctly. Hallelujah. I guess, I'm sorry.
We can just start. We've got the little handout here. You got one. All right. So there are some things when you're developing your syllabus that can really help your students and limit questions for you and get everybody off on the right foot. And so, of course, the first thing is objectives. It seems silly to add that there, but it really helps set the tone for your class and the learning objectives so they know what to do. Everyone usually does that by default. At UIS, we also have 2 statements that you're required to have in your syllabus by the university, and one is the Disability Services Statement, which was updated this semester, but you wouldn't know that. You just know that there's one. But for Rhonda,
so is this the one that you all have in your syllabus? What I'm showing up here now, because this is the updated one.
And if you don't have it on your syllabus currently, it is on our research blog or our teaching blog as well. So if you search our teaching blog for the disability statement, you'll find it there.
I think it might still be the first post when you go to the homepage. And then there's the Academic Integrity Statement.
I'm actually showing you my syllabus. That's why I was hesitating to wondering if I should make this one an example, but I do think I have all these things.
Yeah, so that's just the link to the Academic Integrity Policy of the university, so students have access to that. And then something that we all find super useful, but not everybody does, is a communication policy. Do either of you have a communication policy? So what we mean by that is a response time frame. So how frequently you answer your emails. I mean, we always recommend, I mean, it is an online class. I check my email and encourage people at least every day and log into your course every day.
Not only does it help your students know, but it also helps you out too. I've shared this experience all the time. I had a situation where I had a student who emailed me in the evening hours, like 11 p.m., and then emailed me again at 1 a.m. and then 2 a.m. and I wasn't responding. And so he emailed my department chair saying I was being non-responsive. And of course, I wasn't being non-responsive. I was sleeping. So I think it helps to at least let the students know what they should be expecting from you.
Yeah, so you'll do it within respond with email within 24 hours. And I also put in there how often I grade, like how long after a due date they can expect to have their feedback and their grades. Because sometimes students think they should get it the same day, and it always takes me 1 day, at least like for grading discussion boards after they close. Some people like Carrie get on top of things and they grade them as they come in, but I'm just,
well, yeah.
And it depends on the point on the semester and how many other assignments are due. And
yeah, and a lot of them come in 2 hours before they're due, so which is midnight on Sunday, and I am, like you said, sleeping at that point. So yeah, I think I usually tell them that it's due Sunday at midnight. I'll have it graded by the end of Tuesday. And if not, I'll let them know. But whatever works for you, you don't have to.
No, you don't have to do what we do.
Everyone's life is different, and it works differently for each person. We do recommend, in terms of communication with a fully online student, that a 24-hour, I'll respond to you within 24 hours, is usually a pretty good guideline. If you have a day, Sunday, for example, that you are not going to open email, and you know that, express that in some way. But the idea of office hours, that I'm only in my office, I'll respond to you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It doesn't work as well with online students because they don't ever see you and they don't get a chance to see you. And if they have an assignment due Sunday or an assignment due Saturday or Monday, their question might not happen during your office hours. So I think we have to kind of rethink that paradigm for the online student.
Yeah. So because you get to be more flexible and don't have to spend every Tuesday night in a classroom, it kind of shifts that responsibility in time planning.
But 3 a.m. is definitely unreasonable.
Yes, but setting up their expectations in your syllabus will only help you.
So do you have a communication policy in this one? I didn't.
I don't know. I don't think this is my final syllabus, and I'm not sure that I've got it in there at that point. So this isn't a great one to show you. I've got it. I'll show you an old one. I guess I'm a little reluctant to show active classes. That's why I'm kind of hesitating. But
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, mine ends up kind of distributed. Like I try to summarize it, but where I have discussion board, I tell them how the time frame for that, because it takes me longer to grade papers or
this is what I have. This is what I have in for course communication. Can we see this? Let me pull up.
I can't, but I.
All right.
Thanks, Carrie.
There we go. You see, the gold course that I was showing you is used by other instructors, so it's kind of got a bare bones syllabus in it, because then they add things to it and they make it their own. So this is what's included in there. So this is how, I let them know how I communicate with them, what the discussion forums are used for. One of the things that it's a pet peeve for me, maybe because I'm older or whatever, but I don't like an informal tone when we're in the discussion forums. We're not texting each other. Lowercase I, for some reason, my pet peeve, that says texting to me. It doesn't say, this is my class assignment. If I asked you to turn it in, you wouldn't turn that in on a paper like that. You would check it for good grammar, right? My assumption is, and that's what I expect in my discussion forums as well. So I give students one pass on that, and then I take off points because, and I also don't let students, and this is another thing you need to think about when you're setting up your forums, I don't let them edit their own discussion postings, which frustrates them sometimes. But what it means is, when you've turned that paper in, you've turned in your assignment, it's in. You don't go running back up to the teacher and go, oh wait, no, I'm going to change that now. And no, you finished it, you checked it, and you're turning it in. And that's how I want them to be thinking about their assignments as well. And there are other people who have legitimate reasons for saying, yes, I let my students edit
and there
their
are other
postings.
uses of discussion board.
Right.
Too.
Right.
So,
and probably the main reason why faculty members might not do that is because students, if you do have a deadline for the posting, let's say midnight they have to be in, if they just post, even if it's blank, they can still go back in and edit it. And you wouldn't know that they went in and edited it after the fact, except for the fact that it says edited, but you don't know if they just edited two words or created the whole post. So that's one reason why a lot of faculty members will do that.
yeah. There was also an issue, and I'm not sure where we stand with it, with the time stamping.
It's unresolved.
It's unresolved. So, yeah.
Can I ask something else with the discussion boards, because and the grading? Because my course has the discussion board, and it wasn't due until like last night, say at midnight, but then I was responding to my students throughout constantly, and then I put the grade on it last night, but I guess I wouldn't necessarily have to be chiming in on all of the discussions. I mean, they probably like that I am, but do you do that?
It depends. Yeah. See, my students are graduate students, and so I take more of a backseat role, and I assign each student to be a facilitator for one forum throughout the semester. So it's that individual student's responsibility to respond to posts within the forum, provide a summary at the end of the week, and just help the facilitation. And I do this because I found after a while, when I was going into the conversation ended then.
Yeah.
And so when the students are talking to each other, the conversation will continue a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So the expert spoken, we won't talk anymore.
Right. Or they tend to, once you've jumped in with your opinion, and I'm asking, in my class, I ask for a lot of opinions on things. Suddenly everyone seems to agree with me. So I think there are different ways to let them know you're there. And in some classes, it's very appropriate for you to be jumping in on the discussion forum. I tend to leave comments in the grading text box, so each student sees my comments, but the whole class doesn't see
The
them.
one exception to that I think really sets a good tone for the class is making sure you respond and say something to everybody in that introductions form where they're posting their biographies.
Which is what
Because
was.
yeah, so I think that is critically important in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel, but
Yeah.
just to make sure that they know you're there, that you said hi, because it would be kind of, I don't know, disheartening. You walk into class and your teacher doesn't say hello to you the first day. Like that's what I equate it to. It's like, I mean, you want them to know you're there and you're responsive.
I'll show you.
That's what this was, so it was
Yeah.
easy
Right.
to chime in. I wasn't giving any information at this point.
But after that, I mean, I always read and then redirect if needed. Like if they're going off track or they're being really
Sure.
disrespectful to one another. I mean, you've got to be there and be the teacher, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Another thing that is important to do is to communicate to them how you're going to communicate to them. So in my announcements after the first week, I've left a little thing telling them, showing them how I give feedback. I showed them how to check their feedback in the Grade Center by clicking on the little bubble icon there. Showed them, shared with them the rubric and that they can, that I'm using. So I think it's just important that it isn't essential in an online class that everyone share feedback in precisely, every online instructor share feedback in the same way, any more than it is in a face-to-face class, right?
Right.
There are different ways of getting at the material that you're teaching. We have different kinds of students. We have grad students, we have undergraduates, and you know your students. But I think it's important to be as clear and transparent about it as possible. They shouldn't be thinking, how do I know what she's thinking? They need to know that you're there, that you're reading their posts, and here's where I can go to see my feedback and understand my grade.
Absolutely.
And there's just different ways to get at that. I hate to be prescriptive about it and say, this is the best way.
Because every course is different, every instructor is different. Yeah. Another really important thing is that can eliminate a lot of questions is a course calendar with all the due dates for all the assignments.
Right.
I think most people do that,
That's an old one.
but you know, if you don't, it can really help. And then I guess it's sort of jumping ahead, but I know Carrie has a beautiful calendar. So another thing, a tool in Blackboard, I always like to give them a printed one because I always say, print this out and cross things off when it's done. Then you've got like a visual reminder, because when you're an online student, it's so easy to just forget. Everybody's got a busy life, so I always, when I take an online class, I print it out and put it right by my workspace, so it's like this reminder making me feel guilty.
And so for each student and for each Blackboard user, the way this renders is going to look different for each of them because you can click on your own classes are going to show up there. And if the instructor has added due dates, they show up and then you can remove a check mark and then that one goes away. And the way that those, if you're an instructor and you're setting up your Blackboard, the way those show up is when you add due dates to quizzes, to assignments, to discussion boards, when you set them up, if you add a due date, that automatically ends up in your calendar.
Which is pretty
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
It also shows up in the student's gradebook too, if they can see that column of the gradebook already.
Yeah.
But the students can't see all the calendars.
They do see all. They don't
Oh,
see
theirs.
my calendars. They see their
Theirs.
calendars.
So if you've enabled it in your class and the students taking your class and Carrie's class, they see both of them and they
Right.
see them meshed together. So it's a.
This is my own personal calendar page. And this is what I'm, have available to me to see. I fear it's all going to look the same because.
While we're looking at it, that's what I want to point out, is look how consistent her due dates are. A quiz is due on Friday, discussions due on Sunday, and being consistent like that will help your students succeed.
Particularly students who are taking a number of online classes and trying to come up with a schedule for themselves. I need to have X done by Thursday and this by Friday. If it's it can throw people if it's, if you've got a lot of differences and a lot of changes in there. So.
And it makes it easy on you too.
Yes. You can also, I do want to say, adding due dates to things isn't the only way to put things on your calendar. You can click on a calendar and create an event that way too. If you want all of your due dates in there, it's probably easier to get them in there by setting them up with your assignments.
And there is also a repeat button, if you notice. So now you can have repeating events, so that's nice and easy.
And also in the template that we give you for your Blackboard, that course calendar piece doesn't show up. It is something that is still a tool that's available to everyone, but if you want it to show up in your menu, that is a tool. That's what Blackboard calls a tool. So you need to go to Tool Link, and you'll find the calendars there, and that will make it show up in your Blackboard.
So, the last thing that we just like to remind people is that we are here to support faculty teaching online and blended courses, or even face-to-face with technology-enhanced learning, pedagogies, all of that, but students really need to contact ITS for help. They're set up to really assist the students. They have extended hours, and so we always encourage people to put that in their syllabi, that's where students can get help with technology. You guys have any questions about anything we've covered so far?
No, I saw that show up, the calendar show up on mine, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's showing up for my students. I have to go back and check and make sure I have it opened up for my students.
If you have dates in there, it'll automatically appear there for them if they click on it.
So I must have opened it up. And
I think it's open by default. It's just whether or not there's a link in your course menu.
That's where I might have to go in and open it in Tools.
Yeah, you could add it there to make it more obvious to them, but it's available across the board.
And it's also available at the top, isn't it, Carrie?
I think so.
Just
In the
like
your
the
little
name.
profile thing.
I'm sorry, but where?
Right there. If you click there. The
Yeah.
calendar.
There
So
it is.
the third one, or the last one, I guess.
I don't know what you're saying.
The bottom.
The little calendar icon.
Icon. That one, right there.
Yeah, so students can get to it throughout Blackboard, no matter what
Even
you
if-
do.
And I may have to tell them that if they're not.
Yeah, if they're not savvy, yeah, if it's something that you're spending the time doing, tell them you're doing it.
I think, the thing about due dates and all of that is that if you want to have them, I think you want to have them in more than one place. I've got them in 4 places. And a lot of times, especially at the beginning of the semester, I'll have them up in announcements as well. So that when you get the inevitable, but I didn't know that was due from a student, you can say, well, it's here, and it's here, and it's here, and it's here. Students, I think for just about any class, you're going to have the range of students who will email you if there's a comma out of place in the syllabus, and students who just don't read it. And it's with an online class, the more places you can communicate the crucial information to them, probably the better.
So sort of the next thing that we like to think about is how to make sure the students hear you and see you and feel that you're there, because if they don't feel like you're there, as Michelle and Karen said, they will complain. And it also leads to higher learning outcomes when students feel your, what we call teaching presence. So we've got a list of some things here that are easy ways to make sure your students notice you and all of the time and effort you're putting into the class, right?
And one thing is to really use your announcements area. Typically, unless you change the course entry point, that's going to be the first thing students see when they open up the Blackboard is the announcements. Please don't leave up the automatically generated announcement that comes in your Blackboard template. Just get rid of it because it does kind of look like they see that in every Blackboard that Do you know what I'm talking about? It's when you get your new Blackboard and you open it up, it says this is an automatically generated announcement, and just, any of the
Your
announcements
instructor
can be.
may or may not use this Blackboard course site,
Exactly.
which for an online student in an online class can be a bit disconcerting.
Right.
And you're like, well, if they're not going to use it, what am I going to do?
So, just to delete announcements, do you guys know how to do that? It's just edit announcements or delete them. You can use a little chevron next to the title of the announcement and get rid of it. And obviously, your Create New announcement button is here. Lots of options. You can, if you're going to be away, you can set dates for your announcements to show up. If you do click on Send a copy of this announcement immediately, it will do that.
To their UIS email.
Yes. So even though it will let you say date restricted, it will send that announcement
Right away.
Yeah. So if you want it to be date restricted, or if you want it to go out next Tuesday, don't click on that. You can add, if you were referring to something in the Blackboard, you can add a course link at the bottom. I'll show you that on another. I feel like I'm popping around here a lot, but just stick with me here. For example, at the bottom, I refer to the I have a little video on checking quiz scores that I'm referring to in the announcement, and I can put a course link in here that takes them right to that part of the course where that video is located. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Another way to use announcements is to summarize what's happened for them in the week.
Michelle does a cool thing
Yeah.
with that.
Talk
I always
about
make
what
her
you do,
talk
Michelle.
about it, and I'm like, I love it.
And one thing that I do with my class, because I have the students doing the facilitation, I will take different comments that students make throughout the week and just kind of keep notes of it. And then when I do my recap of the week video to the students, I will refer to those comments. So they know that I'm reading those, even though I'm not jumping into the discussion every day, because I'm letting the facilitators take care of that. I will call out, John, I really like what you said about this, and use that video as a way to increase the presence. And I also do something where I make sure I have a roster of all my students, and then I call out every student at least once throughout the semester, just so that I'm not always choosing one student's post over the other students who might post later in the week.
You do that with the video?
Yes.
You make a video every week, like with Camtasia or something?
Right.
Using a webcam, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's really easy, and I don't know if we'll get into that, but it's a really easy process because it integrates right with Kaltura Media and Blackboard, and then I can just grab the video from there and put it in my announcements, and the students can see it.
I need to do that.
And what I found too, it's not time consuming because my students don't expect it to be perfect. I was doing podcasts before, and that would take a lot more time to do podcasts and make them precise and accurate. And this is so much simpler. And if I goof up, they don't care. They realize I'm human. So,
And when you do that, make sure you post like your outline that you're speaking from, so you've got sort of a transcript or alternative format to make sure you're meeting the needs of all our students and 508 compliance.
So the neat thing about that Kaltura, using Camtasia Relay and that Kaltura tool that we have is that it's integrated into Blackboard, and you can add a thumbnail or a link by just, if you go to Tools inside the Blackboard and down to Kaltura Media, all of the stuff you've created is there. And you can select it, and that adds a thumbnail of it to your Blackboard.
The other nice thing is if you don't use Camtasia Relay, if you've like recorded a video on your phone or use some other tool that you just like to use, like people with Macs have all of these great built-in video tools that they want to use, you can upload to Kaltura using videos you've created elsewhere as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have that integrated into Blackboard also.
So, Carrie already mentioned giving constructive comments in the Grade Center is a great way to make your presence felt. Replies to redirect discussion we already talked about. Oh, can you show us how to add a photo profile to our profile?
Sure.
Because do you guys know, see how Carrie's picture appears next to her name up there? And when she comments on anything in the discussion board,
I just logged out, I'm sorry.
what that does is her picture appears next to her. You've probably seen that with your students. Do you guys already have your photos on?
I haven't had it.
So one thing that I would like to mention is it does want a 150 by 150 pixel photo of you. And we don't all have editing software. If you need help getting one so your face doesn't look squished or smushed, we can help you with that. So I'm like, I don't need any help with getting some chubby cheeks going on.
So you want to go into personalize my settings, and then you'll see that there's an option right here to, obviously I've already done it, but you can go in and attach a file. I know that they look really small, but if you want to look at them bigger too, if you just copy, click to copy them, you can see a full size of your students if you want to see what your students look like. So, and some students, I always say to them, it doesn't have to be a picture of you. It can be whatever you want as your avatar, whatever represents you. It can be for me on Facebook, it's almost always my dog, because she's really cute. Or a flower or something, if I don't want to put my own picture up there. It's just a nice way to personalize it.
A best practice, so like when we first started with online programs and it was so new for people, we used to help people print out mailing labels and send physical letters to people at their houses so that they knew how to claim an ID. Now, since registration and everything is online and people already have their IDs, what we recommend is sending a welcome email out to your students. Sometimes, I usually try to do it before the semester starts, but I know that it's weird because we can't give you workshops before you have been hired and started, and so this is 2 weeks in. But next semester, it's something to consider doing.
So your students are uploaded, 3 weeks before? 2 weeks before. Why I never remember that, I don't know. But so they'll be in your Blackboard 2 weeks before the course starts. So if you just use the send email tool in Blackboard and email all users, they will get your email.
So it's easy to do, and you can tell them things you want them to do, tell them the books.
Yes, that's especially useful since a lot of students are getting it elsewhere.
Yeah, because not everybody knows how the crazy bookstore system works to go look them up. I mean, that takes longer to do than to claim your net ID.
Absolutely.
Are there anything you guys do that you think makes your teaching presence more felt in your classes that we should add to this list, or stuff you've heard? So we're always.
And just so you know, with Blackboards and availability and all of that, there's just a few things that it's helpful to know. One is that they open up automatically at 12:01 a.m. on the first day of classes. If you want to open yours early, you can. I think it's important to make clear to students that that's just a choice you've made, so that they don't then expect all their other classes to show up, because then we and ITS start getting calls and emails saying
they think
only one of my classes is opened up. So I think that's just the warning I give with that. I know some instructors do that, but not all will.
Yeah, some departments just do it. They're like, everybody needs to have their course open by the Friday before the semester starts, and they just do that. But
also, the way students are enrolled is that they sign up, they go through the process of registering, and then there's a script that runs, I think, 3 times a day during the add drop period that will add them. The next time it runs, it adds them automatically to the Blackboard. So it's not like that. It's not like I've signed up, boom, I'm in the Blackboard. I log on to Blackboard, my Blackboard's not there. It'll take a bit of time. We usually say allow up to 24 hours, but it's not.
Unless
really,
they're a brand new student and they don't have a Blackboard account yet, it doesn't take that long.
Right.
So sometimes, since it can take a while, it's really beneficial, especially if they're adding this late, to enroll the student yourself so they don't get further behind. And it's an easy thing to do.
So you'll just go into, again, do you see where I am here I'll close these things out. I'm in this control panel. This is something that only you see as an instructor. Students don't see that. And I'm going to go into users and groups and go into users. And I have an enroll user button. Now, because I'm a Blackboard admin, I have a create user and find user. You won't have a create user button. So you'll just simply go to find user to enroll. You will need their net ID, which is the first part of their email address. So mine is CLEVI2. That's a person's net ID. That's what you need to enroll them. And you'll see that in Banner. That will come up for you in Banner.
And you be checking Banner anyway.
Right.
If you get a student emailing you saying, I enrolled in your class, can you add me? You always want to go to your official class roster in Banner and double check, because
so here I am.
some people, we've had instances.
Right. Well, and as Emily said, that's your official roster. We don't, it used to be that we tried to have that process kind of work in reverse and drop people from Blackboard, but because people get dropped for things like holds, their financial aid hasn't come through and they haven't paid or whatever, and they haven't really dropped, it just was a mess. So we ask that faculty kind of manage their own course rosters. You'll get an email when a student is dropped, and it's just important to double check and make sure that that student isn't on your Banner roster before you remove them. But this is, so adding this enrollment, I know this person's net ID, and I click submit, and now they're in the Blackboard.
And one more note about dropping students from your class. If it's the first week and there's been no submission from the students, you're probably fine dropping them from the class. But if it's week 2 or 3 and you get that drop notification, you'll probably want to hide the student instead of drop them in case they come back in because of the financial aid gets resolved.
So let me show you that a little bit. So you've got a student here. I just got a notification in my email that student 11 has dropped a class. And I look on Banner and I see that in fact student 11 does not appear, or they'll have a little note saying that that person's dropped. So, but student 11 has submitted some work. And I know that if I remove student 11 from the course altogether, all that work, boom, is gone. So just in case, I go to change users availability in course, I make it no. And now when that student logs into Blackboard, they won't see the course, but everything that they've already done will still be saved.
It's a subtle change here, so it's still,
Right.
The student will still appear in your course list, and it'll still appear in Grade Center. So the second thing I do after I hide
Right.
them is I go to Grade Center and then hide them there as well.
So, and to hide them in your Grade Center, you go to Manage Row Visibility, and I see that this little mark here to the left of student 11's last name tells me that student 11 is not available in the class. I can click Hide Row, Submit, and so that person isn't showing up in my Grade Center anymore. If you forget any of this, it's all up on our blog, and you can call us too if you forget it.
Because in my course, I have 2 students who have not submitted anything yet, but I haven't heard that they've dropped the course. So I guess I need to check and see if they really
Yeah, they
dropped.
may have dropped before the first day of classes. So you wouldn't get the notice because ITS turns on the add drop notice during the first week of classes.
Although it's like I've got one every semester, 1 or 2, that don't ever seem to do anything in the class and yet still show up on my roster.
And then you have to report that to the registrar, right?
You report it to the
Or we're
registrar.
getting that letter now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And I try to contact them through email.
I've even called people before.
Yeah.
I am going to email both of the students today and find
Right.
out.
Yeah, and I mean, I let them know, no, you can't go back and do it. I don't care what your excuse is. And better get to it or you're not going to do well in the class. So I don't say it that way.
Right, I know what you're saying.
One practice that one of our colleagues does, which is also an interesting approach, especially if you have a smaller class, is he calls all of the students that first week of the semester just to get that voice-to-voice connection with the students, and tells the students that if they have any issues throughout the semester that he's just a phone call away and feel free to call him too. So I think that's a good gesture too. And for some of the larger classes it might be unmanageable, but if you have a smaller
Yeah.
class,
I've got 50 students.
yeah, so you're not doing
So if these 2 students truly did drop the course, I could remove them and not hide them.
Yeah, if they haven't submitted anything,
They-
honestly, it doesn't make any difference.
Okay, so
because
then,
you can just add them back in.
But we have all seen it, that someone gets that drop notification in week 3, and the student, just hadn't gotten their bill paid or whatever issue. The faculty member goes in, removes them from the blackboard, all their information, everything they've submitted is gone.
And we can't get that back
Right.
a lot of times.
So it's just something to be careful about if a student has submitted one.
Okay, and they haven't submitted anything.
Some other things that we can do to sort of monitor and manage our courses are looking at the course reports and the performance dashboard. That's in the control panel under evaluation. So a lot of people don't look there because it's not the grade center, it's not the course tools, so you don't spend a lot of time there. But there are tools there available for you to see when your students last logged in, how frequently they logged in, where they go. And so those tools are there.
Yeah, the course report is especially useful if you have a student who says that she tried to submit something before the due date, but Blackboard started acting up on her. Well, it's a good way to check to see if she actually logged into your class that day.
There's also in the Grade Center, it tells you last access when the student was. I use that if I have a student that I'm failing, because you have to submit the last date they attended, which is always kind of a question. What would be that in an online class? I use the date, the last access date for that date.
So course combinations, you still have a few days left. I don't know if course combinations are kind of a tricky thing for me because I think that the larger a class gets, the less productive and the less helpful discussion forums are. So if you're combining courses and getting more than probably 35 students in a course, then it's going to be impossible for those students to really read and interact with one another and create a course community. But we have a lot of smaller classes too, or cross-listed courses, or maybe you're teaching on campus and you just want to have one Blackboard, you're teaching 3 sections, you just want to post stuff one time. So there are instances where combining your course is a really helpful tool. And we can, if you fill out a form that's at go.uis.edu/bbcombine, which you have to log in with your net ID. Carrie's graciously showing us how this works. So you log in with your net ID and you can ask us to combine your courses. And it asks for several things. First, which section, so you've got multiple sections. So you guys know in Banner you get a listing of all of your courses and their CRNs, their course reference number. And that data gets exactly duplicated in Blackboard. So what we need to know is which section do you want to keep? Because the one that you list as primary is the only one that's going to stay on Blackboard. The others are going to get deleted. And then all the students from all the sections you combine will go into that single course.
So the other thing to know is that for us to go ahead with this, you have to be listed as the instructor.
Yes.
And I know, like with computer science, they're always struggling and scrambling to get people on the right blackboards. It happens very last minute. But if you know that you're teaching more than one section and you want to combine them, make sure that you've got those CRNs, and then I can confirm it with Bobby or something like that.
So so when you're a new faculty member or an adjunct faculty member, that's usually where the problems come.
Right.
Now, we can still do this up till the 10th day of the semester, but ideally you'll do it before the semester starts, because what happens with the section that disappears, those students might not see any class of yours
until the next time that enrollment script runs.
Right, so there might be an up to 24-hour lag where they don't see your class anymore.
So they've logged on, the first day classes, there's their Blackboard, then they log on the day you have them combined and there's nothing there. So that's why we get a little bit nervous about doing this later into the semester. So I don't know if either one of you have any interest in doing that at all, but if you did, Monday would be the deadline.
So if you look at Carrie's lovely gold course, you see that she's got a pretty picture up
Oh, that
above
is
her
nice.
announcements.
It's a picture that was created by, Ellen Falls.
Yeah. So it says, it's got her course name. Her course is based on the Pew Internet and American Life Research Project. So it's up there. It just sort of signifies if you're teaching multiple sections of a course. Sometimes it helps to identify with different color course banners or different courses, just so you realize what course you're in. And it's easy to create one in PowerPoint. We have instructions on our blog. So if you're not a real image editor and stuff like that, we've got instructions for how to do it. And you can
I remember
add
it's in
that.
property. It's in teaching style. I always forget.
They did. Blackboard changed the name links up on us a couple semesters ago.
So there it is, down there. You see I've added the banner.
So you go to teaching style, you can upload it. So we have dimensions and all of that on our blog for how big to make it. You can also add them by course content area and things like that. If you want a different one to appear at the top of every section or module, you can do that as well.
So you can do it for just one course, not one that's combined.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also, I'm sure you guys know this, but you can change the look of a course. You can do it from this teaching style panel. Also, you can look up here and, oh, what's flame look like?
Nice.
It's Christmas Day. Lavender. There's a number of different things that you can explore here.
And that's how I differentiate if I'm teaching more
Right.
than one class in a semester. I'll have them each different, so I'll know which one I'm in.
And I usually
It's
use
a good
digital
little-
learning for one of them because I teach a class on the internet. And I think also, I think sometimes if you use those things, then students, it helps alert them to, I had a student emailing me last night, something that was meant for a different instructor. So.
Oh. Wow. Makes you real confident they're paying attention. So I think the last thing we wanted to do is just show you a bit about, just show you what the student's view of the Grade Center looks like versus the faculty view for the course management, because whether or not you're using the Grade Center, the students are going to be looking for it.
So they're going to look here under My Grades, and that's something that's part of that template that everyone gets in their Blackboard site. And this is a gold course that I just rebuilt and was really careful to make sure that all the due dates that appear here were correct. They can click to view a rubric that I've created, and that once the rubric is scored, the scores show up here. They will be able to see all of their test scores, all of their discussion scores, and students. I'm going to click back to an earlier one in which there's some actual scores to look at. Let's see, 151 maybe. Students don't always know how to look further for more about their scores. So everything in here that's kind of highlighted is in fact a hyperlink. So if I click on discussion topic 1, it's going to take me back to everything that I've added for that discussion. It takes me to my grade here. It takes me to whatever feedback is left. Great posting, boy, that's great. This is not a real student, by the way. And I can also see my scores on the rubric here. So the student can get to all of that through that My Grades tab. The student can get to, if they've submitted, I've got a Turnitin assignment. I'll tell you, I put comments, when I do a Turnitin assignment, I copy the comments I leave on the Turnitin template. Does everyone know what I'm talking about with Turnitin?
Yes, but I haven't used it, but I'm
Okay.
going to this semester.
And that's like a whole presentation.
And that's coming up.
Right. So
next week.
Oh, yay, I'll have to
So
be there.
here's one of the ways students can see their comments that I've left on Turnitin is by clicking on that little icon and going to, I don't even know what this is. Oh, this is something I did for a class. This is all my work, by the way. This is not actual student work. So if they click on grade mark, they can see the comments there. Sometimes students don't know to do that, even if you leave detailed instructions, if they're used to looking at that little comment bubble in my grade. So I copy what I leave here in the text comments. It's just an extra step, but I copy them here to that grade center so that to be sure they see them.
If you're doing all that work, good grief, you want people to read it.
And again, this will be when we do more detail on Turnitin. There's a little check mark that shows when a student has gone in and viewed the comments you've left. And in a class of 25, I would have 7 with the check mark, and I thought they're not seeing the comments. And then I would get kind of weird out of left field questions about the grades. So I do that extra step of just Control copy and paste it into it just takes a second, into the grade center, and then there's 2 places for them to see it.
So other things that can help your students be successful, if you're using the quiz tool, if you're using the assignment tool, if you're using Turnitin, create a little practice that's worth no points, a low stakes way for them to test the technology out. It will save you headaches later very often.
Yeah.
Course tour videos are another really great practice. So I think Carrie's got.
I do. I wish
from a previous semester.
I wish it had the right
Yeah.
closed captioning on it. It doesn't, and it's probably, again, I noticed when I was trying to put the closed captions on it that the sound was really low. But
This is your old one. Carrie hates
okay.
But so she just, what do you do in it?
I go through every part of the Blackboard, and take them through every menu item and say, this is where you find this, this is where, every week you're going to go here to weekly materials, and this is what you'll see. I have research resources here. So when I'm asking you to do a research paper, this can be a good place. And because I get students, I have undergraduates, and every time I'll get someone saying, I really don't know how to start that. It's a 400 level class, so they should know how to start it, but they don't. Or I get a lot of transfer students. I get students who are coming back to finish degrees that they've left for quite a while, and they just don't know how to start sometimes. So the Learning Hub is a good, at a 400 level class, I don't really feel like I can go and teach them how to do that. They're going to have to go out and find those resources themselves, but I've got some places for them to look. Also BibMe, which I love, and other bibliography creating sites I think are terrific.
The best practice that Carrie does when she creates these is she goes into her student view, the student preview button up at the top, so it really looks like what the students see. Because if they see that control panel and other stuff, they might think that they're not looking at the right thing. So
Right.
If you click on that little button and go into student preview to do your video for the students, it's a nice thing.
Do you know that that's available to you? This is, we used to have faculty call us and say, can you create a dummy account for me so that I can enroll as a student and see what the students are seeing? But now, somehow Blackboard, I guess, got feedback on that, and they created that little button. It looks like an eye. It doesn't really, but it does to me up here. And if you click on that, it's Enter Student Preview. You'll find the control panel, poof, vanishes, and this is what your students are seeing. And just try to remember that you're in that mode.
Yeah. The yellow bar helps.
The yellow bar helps, and not freak out. I know that it's, for example, if you accidentally turn off your edit mode, that's a little more subtle. And people have done that and said, but the chevron's gone. Well, that's because you have to have your edit mode on, and then your chevron appears again. And you can
So to get out of that, you just hit
the same button again.
the same button.
Or you hit exit preview. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Exit preview. And then it will tell you exiting student preview.
So another thing, we've already briefly talked about it, but making sure you have a place for your students to meet one another, an introductory forum is a great way to get them talking to one another and feeling less isolated.
And a forum for them to ask you questions that might be a benefit to the entire class. Now, some students might send you an email, which is great, but if it's something that the whole class needs clarification on, having that forum is good so that everyone can see it.
And I always include that in my communication policy. If it's a question about the course, you post it there, not email.
And one of the benefits to having a forum like that is you can subscribe to it. I don't know if we want to go into subscriptions here, but then as soon as a student posts to that forum, you'll get an email instantly that they've done so.
It helps you prevent forest fires in your class, so you can take care of it right away instead of it becoming a huge problem.
Yes, for instance, if you have a quiz for your students and for some reason it's not available, that's a great way for them to get a hold of you.
This is a gold course, so there's no students in it. And a gold course, are you familiar with when I say a gold course? It's a course that we create for you as a development site. Because we have this process here at UIS where we're copying content from semester to semester. If you have a gold course, that's just where all your content lives without students. And you can copy it from there. I use the gold course because I'm teaching a course that has 6 sections. Yeah, 5. Well, it has lots of sections.
Yeah, lots.
And I'm sort of the lead instructor for it at this point. So other people are going to be using that same content. It's a course that deals with current events, so it's updated every semester. So I need to have a clean course without student info so that when I copy it, then I don't have to go through and delete all those discussion postings because they're not there. I do have to, because all my forms have due dates on them, you know, that kind of thing, all that has to be updated. All the due date stuff has to be updated.
But it's so worth it to keep your students on track.
But where is your form then? In your discussion board?
Right. Those are,
so see your questions for instructor.
Yeah.
So if you create a forum for that, or it can be questions about this course, so you just create a discussion forum where students can post questions, and we just encourage turning on that subscribe option.
right. So you'll see as you're setting it up, you can allow members to subscribe to forum.
And that's an opt-in process, so just because you turn the tool on doesn't mean you're forcing emails on all of your students. Once it's turned on, they can choose to get it or choose not to.
Right, and so that when I open that forum, you'll see that I have action buttons here. I can create a thread, and I can, right now I'm subscribed, I can unsubscribe. Or if I'm tired of getting all those emails, I can unsubscribe. If I want to get them, which I do, I can subscribe. Typically, in my other discussion forums, I allow them to subscribe to threads because the students are creating their own threads to add to the forum. This all gets into a lot of discussion forum stuff, and they might want to get a notification when someone replies to them. So,
how to reply students' questions using the discussion forum?
Okay, how do I reply to them? So a student would create a thread and ask their question, and I would just go in and click reply and leave a reply there for them. So I think I can show you just an example of this. Let's see. I don't know.
If you want to go to, if you have access to my class, I know I have one that has no student in it yet.
So here's questions for instructors. There's just a person, we'll pretend we can't see his name, who's written a question to me, and I click on reply, and I have the answer to what he's written there.
And then everybody can
And
see
everybody can
that.
see it.
Just like in my discussion,
Right.
when I reply to each student, everybody can read that because
Right.
they're all in the discussion.
Correct.
But you know what? I had one student, she was replying to, because they each had to reply to 2 students, but you couldn't tell who she was replying to. So was she?
She was posting a new thread instead of clicking reply.
Yeah.
That's
would be
what
my
I need
guess.
to tell her. She posted a new thread instead. Okay.
Otherwise, it's kind of nested there, and it's all on, you'll see just the replies all on one thread.
Well, and some of the students said, I don't know, I can't quite read your reply, or I can't quite see who you're replying to. They even said that maybe
They were
the
being
same
nice.
They were
Very
very
snarky.
They were all being nice
Right.
to her.
Right.
That's good.
So it's the difference between, and I'm going to pop back into my goal course so I don't reveal student data. It's, you can create a thread.
Just like what we do, like what I will do when I want to do a forum questions for instructor, that's what I do. I create a new one.
So now you see there's 2 threads here.
Okay.
And if I'm reading this comment and I want to reply to it, I click reply. And you'll see that my reply shows up. Let's go back out. I'm not loving this mouse today. I click that close like 3 times. Just stay closed.
I always find talking to my computer makes me feel better, even though it doesn't change its behavior.
So you see
like
that's underneath the original posting.
Right.
Whereas a new thread is here.
There's also a different way to look at the discussion board too. So maybe you're looking at the different way, and that's the tree view.
Preview. Okay. Yeah.
Or what I do is I always grab the new messages from there, and so it looks different there too.
So here's the tree view. You see like on this thread there's a reply,
So there's a
plus sign, and then it's kind of nested there.
So the indented pieces are replies to other posts.
But if I posted this new thread as a reply to the first one, you
No
really
one
wouldn't
would
know that it's a reply. Because it just looks like it's a new topic, it's a new thread.
When I hit, when they make comments to each other and I just hit mark as read, they're going to see that I'm the one that read the comment?
Nope.
No, that's just for you.
That just helps you keep track of whether you've looked at a post or not.
So they have no idea that I read their work.
That's why you have to leave comments or replies or something.
Well, at least I responded to all their big initial, but I just wanted them to know that I read their replies to each other, so there's no way for them to ever know that.
No. Not unless you're leaving feedback.
No.
But I don't know if that's necessary.
I mean, I don't respond to everybody's 2 people. I can't do that.
There's a lot of research on this topic and what is the optimum number of replies or responses. And there is, if you're responding to everything they write, it does kind of shut down the discussion a little bit. I think, to some extent, you really want to encourage them to discuss with each other. You want them to feel free to discuss with each other. And again, it depends on the topic and whether you're teaching things that are, if you're looking for evidence of critical thinking, or if you're teaching skills that require a number of facts for them. So different disciplines will use a discussion forum in different ways. But, I think being present on it and having them know you're present is good, and being too present can be a detriment.
It's finding that balance for you and your students. So we've already sort of touched on rubrics, and Carrie showed you what a rubric looks like. If you're interested in using that tool, you can set up an appointment with us and we can help you with that. Another cool thing that can really help your students succeed are model assignments. So what is this expectation that an instructor has? And Carrie has a lot of examples there. It's especially helpful, for an assignment that you have lots of times or one time. I mean, no matter what, it's really helpful. And not showing something perfect is okay. So showing average student work, like this will get you a B in the course if you do work this way, sort of thing.
And I really, what I want to show them is what I'm looking for full credit.
Yeah.
So it's not, they don't have to be perfectly written. This person has hyperlinks in, so this is clearly someone who has some facility with using Blackboard. This one doesn't, though. But as you can see, these aren't 5 sentences. And I think sometimes when, with my subject, I'm asking them a lot to reflect on their own use. It's the internet in American life. I'm asking them to reflect on what they do. And so anyone could just pop into the discussion forum and go, well, here's what I do, and call it a day. And that's not what I'm looking for.
But backing up a practice or a belief with research is
right. So I have student work examples here For each type of assignment, I have a research plan, a final paper. I ask them to create an infographic. I ask them to create a public policy proposal. Also, another thing that I do when I set up my discussion forums is that in order for a student, let's see if I'm going to be a liar this time. In order for a student to create a new thread, they have to write their own thread, create a thread, and then they can see everyone else's postings. That makes sense? That's an option when you're setting up a discussion forum. So if you're going to choose that option for your discussion forum, I think it's important for them to have examples they can look at so that they understand what the expectations are.
Yep.
Make sense?
And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about letting students edit their posts, because that's another way students can get around that. If they just create a thread, put, I'm just checking in and see what everyone else says, and then they have access to everyone else. So it circumvents that.
Okay. So the last thing that's sort of a best practice to help students succeed is putting in links to other services at UIS. So of course we want to give them access to the information technology services. We want to make sure that they know how to get to the library, which is in I
don't know why it's not in this gold course, but it's in everything else.
Yeah, well, it's in your other courses.
Right.
So,
it's in the active courses.
And disability services, sometimes the counseling center, the diversity center might be useful to students. And if you're teaching online courses, oftentimes they're online students, so connecting them, saying who their librarian or their program coordinator is, can be helpful.